selection from Alice in Wonderland. In this classic story, Alice follows the White Rabbit down a rabbit hole. She encounters many strange characters and adventures, including dreams that make her grow and food that make her shrink. This part of the story begins when Alice once again catches up with the White Rabbit, who seems to be in a very big hurry. Very soon the rabbit noticed Alice. "Alice," she called to her in an angry tones. "Why, Marianne, what are you doing here? Run home this moment and fetch me a pair of gloves and a fan. Quick, now!" Alice was now frightened that she ran off at once in the direction he pointed without trying to explain the mistake he had made. "He took me for his maid," she said to herself as she ran, "but I'd better take him his fan and gloves. That is, if I can find them." As she said this, she came upon a neat little house. On the door was the name W. Rabbit. She went in without knocking and hurried upstairs. She was very afraid that she might meet the real Marianne and be kicked out of the house. "How strange it seems," Alice said to herself, "to be running errands for a rabbit. I suppose my cat Dinah will be sending me on errands next." By this time she had found her way into a tidy little room with a table by the window. On it was a fan and two or three pairs of tiny white gloves. She took the fans and gloves, and was just going to leave when her eye fell upon a little bottle near the mirror. There was no label this time with the words "Drink Me." Nevertheless, she uncorked it and put it to her lips. "I know something interesting is sure to happen," she said to herself. "Something interesting always happens when I eat or drink anything, so I shall see that this bottle does. I hope it will make me grow large again. I'm tired of being such a tiny little thing." It did indeed, and much sooner than she expected. Before she had drunk half the bottle, she found her head against the ceiling. She had to stoop to her neck from being broken. She hastily put down the bottle, saying to herself, "That's quite enough. I hope I won't grow any more. As it is, I can't get out the door. I do wish I hadn't drunk so much." Alas, it was too late to wish that. She went on growing and growing, and very soon had to kneel down the floor. In another minute there was not even room for this. She lay with one elbow against the door and other curled round her head. Still she went on growing. At the last resort she put one arm out of the window and one foot out the chimney. She said to herself, "I can do no more, whatever happens. What will become of me?" Luckily for Alice, the little bottle had its full effect. She grew no larger. Still, it was very uncomfortable, and there seemed to be no chance of ever getting out of the room again. No wonder she felt unhappy. It was much pleasanter at home. Poor Alice said to herself. It wasn't always growing larger and smaller, and being ordered around by mice and rabbits. I almost wish I hadn't gone down that rabbit hole, and yet it's rather strange, this sort of life. I wonder what will happen to me. "When I used to read fairy tales," she said, "I imagined this kind of thing never happened. Now, here am I in the middle of a fairy tale. There ought to be a book written about me, and when I grow up I'll write one. But wait, I suppose I'm grown up now," she continued to sorrowful tone. "Won't I ever grow up from where I am now? That will be good, in one way. I'll never have to be an old woman, but then I'll also always have lessons to do. Ah, you foolish Alice, she answered herself. How could you do the lesson in here? Why, there's hardly any room in here for you, and neither are for school books. She went on talking, taking first one side and then the other. Still, after a few minutes, she heard the voice outside and stopped to listen. Marianne, Marianne, said the voice. Fetch me my gloves this moment. Then came the little pattering of feet on the stairs. Alice knew it was Rabbit coming to look for her. The rabbit came to the door and tried to open it, but it was as the door opened inwards and Alice's elbow was pressed against it. The attempt failed. Alice turned him to save himself. Then I'll get the window. That she won't, thought Alice, after waiting until she thought she heard a rabbit just under the window. She suddenly spread out her hand and made a snatch in the air. She did not get a hold of anything, but she heard a little shriek and crash of broken glass. Next came an angry voice. The rabbit, Pat, Pat, where are you? And then a voice she had never heard before, taken for Apples, your Horner. Taken for apples? Apples, indeed, said the rabbit angrily. Come and help me out of this soft, more broken grass. Now, tell me, Pat, what that in the window? Sure, it's an arm, your honor. An arm, you goose. Whoever saw one in that size? Why, it fills the whole window. Sure, he does, your honor, but it's an arm for all that. Well, it's got no business there. At any rate, go and take it away. There was no silence after this, and Alice could only hear whispers now and then. At last, she spread out her hand again and made another snatch in the air. This time there were no shrieks, and more sound broken glass. She waited for some time without hearing anything more. At last came a rumbling of little wheels and a many voices all talking together. She made out the words. Where's the other ladder? Bill Scott. The other. Bill, fetch it here, lad. Here, put 'em at this corner and no tie them together first. Bill, catch hold of this rope. Will the rope hold? Mind the loose weight. Oh, it's coming down, a loud crash. Now who did that? It was Bill, I fancy. Let's go down the chimney. Nah, I won't you do it. Bill's to go down. Here, Bill, the master say you were going down the chimney. Oh, so Bill's gotta come to the chimney, has he? Said Alice to herself. This fireplace is narrow to be sure, but I think I can take a little. She drove foot as far as the chimney as she could. She waited till she heard a little animal. She couldn't guess what scratching and scrambling about in the chimney. This must be Bill. She said to herself and gave one sharp kick, and waited to see what would happen next. The first thing she heard was a chorus of "There's goes Bill," the rabbit voice, "catching you by the hatch." The silence, and then another confusion of voice. "Hold on his head, don't choke him. How was it, old fellow, that happened to you? Tell us all about it." Last came a feeble, squeaking voice. "That's Bill," thought Alice. Well, I hardly know. I'm a bit flustered to tell you. All I know is something comes at me like a jack-in-the-box, and it goes like a skyrocket. So you did, you old fellow, said the others. We must burn the house down, said the rabbit's voice. Alice called down as fast as good. If you do, I'll set tin on shoe. There was a dead silence instantly. I was about to stop. I wondered what they would do next. If they had any sense, they'd take the roof off. After a minute two, they began moving about again. Alice heard the rabbit say, "A bucketful will do, to begin with." A bucket full of what? Thought Alice, but she had no longer to wonder, for a shower of little pebbles came rattling in the window. Some of them hit her in the face. "I'll put a stop to this," said to herself, and shouted out, "You'd better not do that again," which produced another dead silence. Alice noticed, with some surprise, that she pebbles all were all turning into the cakes and lay on the floor. A bright idea came into her head. "If I eat one of these cakes," she thought, "it's sure to make some change in my size, as it can possibly make me larger. It must make me smaller, I suppose." So she swallowed one of the cakes. She was delighted to find that she began shrinking. As soon as she was small enough to get through the door, she ran out of the house. She found quite a crowd of little animals and birds waiting outside. The poor little lizard's bowl was in the middle, but being held up by two guinea pigs. They all made a rush at Alice at the moment she appeared, but she ran off as hard as she could. Soon she got herself safe in a thick wood. If you like to read more Alice Adventure, ask your librarian to help you find Alice in Wonderland or Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll.